Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Thank you for joining us today for the Open Up Show. My name is Dipesh Kent, and I am the social media coordinator for Voice of Men 360. Voice of Men 360 is a nonprofit organization founded in 2020 and is based in Toronto, Canada. Voice of Men 360 was born out of seeing a need and stepping up to provide services, help, and support to overcome men and boys challenges in our community. We are part of International Men's Day. International Men's Day has been serving for 21 years so far, and 90 countries around the world joined together during various activities. International Men's Day follows six pillars, which is the overall well being of boys and men, and we follow in the same footsteps. Why open up? Because we men do not open up our hearts and are willing to share our matters with anyone. When we keep our emotional challenges within ourselves for a long time, at some point they will explode and affect our health in many ways. This is why we want to create an open up space and allow an individual to share their life journey through our platform. We aim to create awareness about life challenges, struggles, overcome ups and downs that our boys and men face throughout their lives. There are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, ethnic group in sharing your life journey. All walks of life can participate. Our goal is to make a positive impact on someone's life through this program. Open Up is on Sundays, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We bring an individual to each show and let them share their life experiences with you. Before I introduce our special guest, I would like to go through our disclaimer. We would like to remind you that Voice of Men 360's mission is always delivered with good faith towards peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's show are those of our speaker and do not represent Voice of Men 360. Our organization engages in various discussion forums to offer inspiration and create awareness of the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you contact a medical professional. If you have questions or concerns about today's episode or any Voice of Men 360 contact, please email us at info@voiceofmen360.org. Today's speaker is Brian Kennedy. Brian Kennedy is an accredited mental health and wellness career coach specializing in helping executives and managers identify, manage, and recover from stress so they can continue a successful career. He has survived seven armed robberies in his banking career and has known personally extreme levels of stress and what can do that to someone. He later became an ultra-marathon runner and changed his life. Thank you, Brian, for joining us.
Hi, Deepesh. Thanks a million for the invite. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Brian, you mentioned that a pivotal point for you when you faced burnout and mental exhaustion. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you realized that you were facing mental exhaustion?
Sure. eh, I'd have to take you through a bit of a journey because part of the issue for me when I was just about to suffer mental exhaustion was that I couldn't see it. I was working 84 hours a week. I wasn't talking to anybody. I was working under extreme stress in a pretty toxic environment. And as a man growing up, it wasn't okay for me to ask for help or to show vulnerability or to show emotion. Okay. Um, and that culminated at the age of 50 when everything just crumbled and I suffered mental exhaustion. And I had to change my life. Um, so, what I've dedicated my life since 2010 is to coach mostly men and women executives to not fall into the traps that I fell into in my career and my life in order to have the future that you wanted, so that they don't make the same mistakes that I did, and that they would be able to identify what's right and what's wrong in their life at the moment and what they may need to change. So
Yeah,
if you want me to explain, um, the issue for me was that, my early educators taught us in school fear and shame. You know, um, they taught men that everything that you did had to be right, that you had to have all the answers, that you shouldn't show emotion. If we were asked a question and we got it wrong, we were put at the top of the class in front of everybody and shamed in front of everybody. And you were made to believe that to not have the answer to a problem meant that you were a failure. And if you were to ask for help, then you were weak. And what that did for people of my generation, and for me specifically, and I'll just talk to you through my own journey, was that led me to grow up through my childhood years and my um, teenage and adult years, uh, with fear, shame, limited beliefs, and gifts, but with a constant pressure that whatever I did, I had to be the best and I had to succeed in it. Um, and I didn't really have a plan. When I left school, I didn't really have a plan to what did I want to do. Um, but growing up, I suppose the educators didn't do anything to instill confidence in a young man to
mm,
help us with our future. It was just they taught us fear and shame, and I brought that into my adult life, in that every single role that I had in my career, I was lucky enough to be promoted in. But every time I went into a room with my peers, my imposter syndrome would always come up with, I'm probably not as well educated as those people, or I'm probably not as good as those people. And I really didn't believe that I should have been in the room with those people. Yet, I, I should have been in that room, but the state of my mind
mm,
and what I believed in myself and the self talk that I listened to in my head led me to believe that I wasn't good enough. And what that drove me through was an unbalanced mindset that meant every single thing I did, I had to do it at 100%. Okay. I played football as a young adult, and I got a football trial in the UK for professional football. But I wasn't interested really in being a professional footballer. But when I played football and I went out onto a football pitch, I was a completely, absolutely different animal to the person off the football pitch. I
mm,
was determined, committed. I would do anything to win. If we won, I was delighted. If we won and I didn't score a goal, I was beating myself up. Um, Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be perfect, and I brought that into my career. So, um, my father was an alcoholic. I have to say, I came from a really loving family. My mother was absolutely fantastic. My father became an alcoholic, and I didn't have a relationship with my dad whatsoever. And I think for any man that's listening to this, I think what's really important, if you have a son or a daughter, but if we're just talking about the sons for the moment, it is really, really important that you try to build a relationship, um, mentor and guide. You can't live your life for your son, but you can mentor and guide them and give them, and assist them to identify the values that they need in life, when they become an adult to be successful. I didn't have that in my life. Um, I would come home with player of the match trophies, player of the year trophies for the football or the rugby club that I played for. And my mother would think it would be fantastic, and my father would never make a comment. I got a football trial in England. My mother thought that was fantastic. My father never made a comment. Um, but I do remember when I was about 14 or 15, and I was sitting. One of our public exams here is the what they call the intercert, and I had my maths exam the following day, and I failed it because my dad sat on my bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, drunk, telling me how useless I was. And as a young man, when you look up to your parents, the last person that you want to be telling you that you're not going to account to much, that you're useless, which is reaffirming what your early educators told you when they beat you in school when you didn't get an answer right, was to have a person who you look up to and respected in your life to tell you that. And I failed my maths exam the following day. And that is one of the lasting memories I have of a conversation that I had with my father. And when my father was dying, who happened to be in the hospital with him, when the doctor came, pulled across the curtain around the bed, and said, Mr. Kennedy, this is it. This is the end. It's palliative care. We can't do any more for you. We don't know really how long you've got, but um, he turned to me and said, you need to help your dad get his affairs in order. Now, as a chap who didn't have a relationship with my dad, wasn't it very, very strange that the universe would put us together at a conversation like that? It was a difficult thing to listen to when you're being told that somebody is going to die and you're not being told that. But, a person who you respect, even though they you had no real relationship with them, was told. And when the doctor left, my father said to me, he said, son, and he didn't say Brian, and I remember that very clearly. He said, son, if I had my time over again, the things that I would do differently. And that was 2006, and I was living my life at 100 miles an hour. I was working long, long hours in my job at the time. And I buried my father, and I spoke at his funeral, and I looked after my mum with my sisters, and it left absolutely no hole in my life whatsoever. Yet I can sit here and I can talk for 10 minutes about my dad. But he genuinely did not leave a big hole in my life like my mother did when she passed away in 2018. And the following year, my best friend was diagnosed with cancer, and I got offered a job in a new bank with very good money. And it was a position that I had aspired to throughout my career, what I had driven myself to, what I believed I could do. The money was six figures, the job was really good. And I found myself sitting at the side of the bed with my friend who was dying, asking him, what should I do? My whole lack of self awareness in myself, living my life at 100 miles an hour, actually had a conversation with my friend who was dying and had not long to live about what should I do about my career, not about what can I do for him to support his family when he was gone. And he told me to take the job and said, don't be an idiot. You can do the job, take it, do it. And, and, and I did. And my friend died, and I spoke at his funeral, and I continued to live my life at 100 miles an hour. I learned nothing. I learned nothing from those two vast experiences in my life because of my unbalanced mindset, in that I had in my head, I'm a man. I must be the person who supports my family. I must be the person to do everything. I must have all the answers. I must do this. and you must move on and get promoted and continue going and going and going. So a completely unbalanced mindset I had based on my, the learned behaviors that I had learned from my early educators. And of course, throughout that, Dinesh, you had mentioned in the introduction, throughout that, other things that happened in my career where, I've had a knife to my throat and a gun to my head, um, in seven armed robberies in the banking career. That had absolutely no effect on me whatsoever, because I would not lose a day's work because somebody put a gun to my head, because that was detriment, I believed, to my career, and I could not show vulnerability and I could not show emotion. So I would be in work the next day. I would show up the next day.
Well, yeah, no, that's I think any family that has gone through that, where it's addictions when it comes to alcoholism or workaholism, different kind of addictions, right?
Mm,
I think the core belief that you kind of grow up with as a man is like, I'm not good enough, right? Like no matter
yeah,
what I do, it's not good enough.
yeah,
I need to be 100% all the time, like perfectionism, um, go, right? And like not taking time for yourself, and I think you lose yourself in that, right? And that's kind of what it sounds like, you know, and
absolutely,
uh, and yeah, and
absolutely.
especially, yeah.
I, 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 I was lost. I was lost. I was lost in this. I think I had a fear somewhere in my head of homelessness. Um, I didn't know whether my parents owned their house until later on. So when I looked at my father being an alcoholic, I wondered, could you lose your house or whatever it might be? But my parents did own their house, so that was a pressure that I really didn't need in my head, but it was there. And what that did, that stayed in my head, so that throughout my career, and when I wanted to look after my family, um, to the extent that when when I was blessed with the birth of my son, and I held him in the hospital, and um, I didn't know whether to. It's not that I didn't know whether to cry with joy and being a dad. I was terrified to be a father, because I thought I would turn out like my dad. But I held my son, and I was so proud for what you would call maybe a nanosecond. And then the voice came in my head. Okay, Brian, you have additional responsibilities. You have to provide for your family now. You need to get on. You need to do even more than you're doing now in order to, provide for this additional member of your family. And I went out and I bought a second house. And 6 years later, when my daughter was born, and I was blessed with a beautiful daughter, and I sat there and I looked at this princess, and I now had a son, and I now had a daughter, a beautiful daughter. And I leaned over and kissed my wife and thanked her for such a beautiful daughter. And I sat in a chair, and again, for genuinely a moment, I was full of joy. I didn't know whether to cry, because men don't show emotion. I was still in, I can't show emotion. So I'm sucking all the emotion down like I did when our early educators beat us and we didn't have the answer. We couldn't show emotion. So I had that deep in me. And what did I do a couple of years after my daughter was born? I went and bought a third house, because the voice in my head was telling me I needed to do more as a man, and I needed to actually provide more. And of course, I'm working very, very long hours. I'm under a lot of pressure in work. There's lots of people not happy with what's going on. I'm taking a lot of pressure. Um, I'm not asking for help. And one day, I was asked a particular question, and something snapped in my mind. Genuinely, something snapped in my mind. So I'm going along my life at 100 miles an hour. The death of my friend, the death of my father, seven armed robberies, nothing could get in the way of my career progression, what I believed was the corporate chair that I was chasing. I loved my wife. I met her when she was 16 and I was 18. I would do anything for her. But let me tell you something. Every time my father took a drink, he got a dopamine hit. And every time I got something off my very, very long to do list in work, working 84 hours a week, I got a dopamine hit. And I would go and do 100 hours a week if I could to get another thing off my to do list. And what I realized was that I was doing to my family what my father had done to us as kids, what my father did to drink to our family, I was doing to work, through work, to my family. Okay. And, when I suffered mentally, I went to the doctor when I came. Sorry, let me just roll back a second. When I left work that day early and I got home, when something in my head just tweaked, can't explain it any more than that, to be perfectly honest. I didn't know it was coming. Something just snapped. And I walked in the front door. My wife was home from work and she knew straight away that something was wrong because I am never home early. And she looked at my face, and Martina knows me and can read me like a book. And she sat me down and asked me, what was wrong. And I still get a little emotional when I think about that day and the love, because I was in a very, very dark place that afternoon. And that's because, as men, we think it's wrong to be vulnerable and ask for help.
So like it's a
Went
sign
to
of weakness, right?
Absolutely. That was a sign of weak. Even in front of my wife, I didn't want to show a sign of weakness. And I got signed off for 3 weeks work in 2010. I needed total mental relaxation. Switch the phone off, whatever. Okay. And on the Monday morning, when my wife was gone to work and my kids were gone to school and the house was empty, a feeling came over me and I just sobbed like a child in the chair. Uh, I could visualize myself from above, and a lot of things became clear. And, I'm a twin, I'm a surviving twin, and my twin sister, Yvonne, died when we were 3 months. And from the day I found out I was a twin, I lived my life for both of us. But through my working and living my life at 100 miles an hour, somewhere along that journey, I had forgotten that. And as I sat in that chair, I heard a voice telling me everything would be okay.
Well,
I firmly believe that that was my twin sister. And from that day forward, Dinesh, I decided that, you know, I would change my life, that I was no longer going to be driven by whether it was my ego as I looked in the mirror and saw this man that I didn't recognize. And I sat at a table and I wrote down on a sheet of paper, one thing on every sheet of paper of what was positive in my life, and one thing on a page and what was negative in my life. And I sat back and I look at all the positives on one side and all the negatives on the other. And I decided I would take all those negatives out of my life. And one of the things I decided was, well, what you think of me from now on, I don't care. I was no longer going to be defined by my job title. Didn't care what my boss said about me. I didn't care whether people, when I went back to work, would think I had had a nervous breakdown, because so what? Why would I worry about that, which would have been, a big thing for me before that. And it took a while, but I was starting to see a clear vision for my life for the future. which included, when I went back to work, mentoring people, mentoring my direct reports, because I was no longer interested in chasing a corporate share. Okay, I had a good job. I was going to continue doing my job. Um, but I was going to make sure that I brought people along a very positive journey with me, even though perhaps I was working in quite a toxic environment. And I had a, I had a clearer vision for my life, for the future, and for my kids for the future. Um, and since 2010 to now, well, we 2023, they've been to 12.1 best years of my life that I can remember, because I look after my mind, my body, and my soul, while also looking after my family relationships, and my fitness, and all that kind of stuff. So men can have the future that they desire once we slow down in life, start understanding the emotional intelligence and our mind, and doing a bit of mind mastery to clarify really what's important to them in their lives, and then writing that down, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and reviewing that, and having at least 2 to 3 people in their life that, if they had a deepest, darkest secret that they wanted to share, that they know they could say it to one of those people and it wouldn't end up on social media. And they're the people who we can go and talk to, and talk about our fears, and talk about our challenges. Because it's not good enough that in Ireland in particular, 80% of suicides every year are male suicides, simply because we feel we have nobody to talk to.
Yeah, no, that definitely. I think that's powerful, and it's amazing that you were able to, change your life around and see the positive into it, and then you're also helping other people change your life also. Thank you so much, Brian, for sharing your life journey today. Wish I could, I'm hoping to have you back again and have another discussion on how men can change their life and turn their life around, because it's definitely needed. And I think
Yeah.
you're a strong positive force in helping people change their lives.
I,
um,
I think if I can leave you on this, Deepesh, it's for any man that is here today listening to this, and feels that they are in a dark place. There are lots of people and places out there where we can go and ask for some help, you know um and it is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. If that's the only thing that people can take away from this call today, from this talk today, it is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. Nobody has all the answers. Nobody. And you know there are people out there who can help us, and when we get the help, that cloud that we have been living under in our heads begins to clear. Takes time, but begins to clear. I did it through marathon and ultra marathon running, you know, and that was where I found my solace, my thinking, what I, my clarity and things like that. Um, for other people, it doesn't have to be exercise. It can be art, drawing, whatever, writing. Um, but yeah, and listen to some positive podcasts, and surround yourself with positive people in your life. And if you can identify the people who drag you down, the people who have only negative things to say, make the decision that I did. And it doesn't matter how long you know them. That coffee that you used to have every week becomes every 2 weeks, becomes once a month, becomes once a quarter, becomes once a year, because you do not want to listen to that negativity, because you become a more positive affirmative person for your life and for those around you. So thanks a million for having me today and giving the opportunity to share that with you. I hope people have got something out of it.
Yep, thanks, Brian. And can you tell us how people can contact you or reach you or anything you want to promote?
Sure. Sure. You can find me on Instagram under BJ Keno Motivation, the same on Facebook, and I'm Brian Kennedy, mental wellness coach on LinkedIn, and here to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you so much, audience, also for being here and your comments also. I just have a few closing announcements to share with you before we end our show. We do have a few live shows. So, Open Up is a live talk show on Sunday at 10 a.m. EST. We have Billy, which is a Tamil live talk show on Sundays at 8 a.m. EST. We have our monthly webinar, which is the first Saturday of every month at 10 a.m. EST. We bring in expertise, organizations, and discuss a particular topic each time. We have a monthly special show called The Unspoken Tears, which is second Saturday of every month from 10 to 11 a.m. EST. The focus is on domestic violence against men, bullying, male sexual abuse, traumas, addictions, and human trafficking. And we have the Author Circle, where we bring in individuals who have been contributing to the well being of boys and men through writing, articles, media, and recognize them. And we appreciate them the third Saturday of every month from 11 to 12 p.m. EST. We have podcasts. All our shows are available on 6 platforms, including Google Play, iPhone, and so on. We also have our monthly men's group, which is only for men by men, every 2 weeks on Tuesdays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. through Zoom. And we also have Pastors Talking Stick, which is an Indigenous peer-to-peer support group, fourth of Friday every month from 6 to 7 p.m. through Zoom. There are no limitations to gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups. All walks of life can participate in any of our shows. If you want to be a guest on any one of our shows or be willing to be part of our organization, you can help us directly or indirectly. Please reach out to us. We would love to work with individuals, professionals, expert community organizations, corporations, government officials, and businesses. Our phone number is 437-889-8329. Our email is info@voiceofmen voiceofmen360.org. Our website is voiceofmen360.org. And you can find us on all social media, including Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, which is Voice of Men 360. We want to reach out to more people and help our community. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for watching our show, Voice of Men 360. Signing out.